We are now, 38 days since free agency began on the evening of June 30th, and despite most of the league's free agents now signed to their respective teams, the 4 restricted free agents still remained unsigned without a new contract, and yes, that includes Josh Giddey, who by all accounts, him and the Bulls still remain far off on a deal. However, some of the recent contract extensions that were announced, not free agency deals, but extensions that have happened in the last week or so, could actually impact Josh Giddey's next deal and actually give him some leverage in these negotiations with the Bulls. Probably not much, but it's something. How, you might ask? Well, let's talk about it. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I don't doubt that the contract extension with Josh Giddey is likely going to drag out, even possibly going into September. I actually expect that to be the case with all the other restricted free agents in Kuminga, Grimes, and Cam Thomas as well. But regardless, I do think a couple of the recent contract extensions we saw around the league could in fact weigh in Giddey's favor to demonstrate to the Bulls that he's worth more than the reported $20 million per year the Bulls have been pushing for. And the 2 contracts I'm talking about specifically are the extensions that we saw to Mikal Bridges, where the Knicks extended him to a 4-year, $150 million deal, and De'Aaron Fox to that max contract extension to the tune of 4 years, $229 million. Now, don't get me wrong, Josh Giddey is not on the level of either of these guys. In fact, all 3 of these players are very different when it comes to their overall skill set. This by no means should indicate that Giddey should be getting the type of money Fox and Bridges should be making. That said though, Bridges, as good as he is as a two-way player, high impact, winning type player, always available, literally the dude never gets injured, but also he's never made an all-star game. He's not an insanely good shooter. In fact, at times he's actually been very inconsistent with his shot, and believe it or not, he actually shot worse than Giddey did from 3-point range last season. And not only that, he's about to turn 29 in just a few weeks, whereas Giddey, as we like to always say, is only 22 years old. So even though Giddey might not necessarily be the player Mikal Bridges is in terms of his overall impact on the court, there are more years and more upside that favor Josh Giddey over a player like Bridges. If I'm Josh Giddey's agent, I'm using the Bridges extension as a clear example for why Giddey deserves more money, because if the market is saying Mikal Bridges is worth $37 million annually, a good player but not a great player, not a star, then Josh Giddey deserves more than $20 million per year. Now, just because the Knicks overpaid for Bridges, both in terms of the amount they traded to get him, where they moved, 5 or 6 first-round picks or whatever it was, and now overpaying him with this contract extension, that doesn't mean the Bulls should overpay Giddey as well. But it is a benchmark, a market indicator that Giddey's camp can use to drive up his own value, because while it was a small sample size, yes, it was March and April basketball, as everyone likes to say, but Giddey, post-All-Star break, actually looked better than Mikal Bridges did, especially when you factor in as well the age difference, knowing that Giddey hasn't even entered his prime yet, while you know what you're getting with Mikal Bridges. Now, for De'Aaron Fox, obviously Fox is a better player than Giddey. No one is questioning that. When Fox is healthy, he's an all-star, a professional bucket getter, insanely athletic, can punish you at the rim with his crafty finishing ability, and he has a knack for getting the foul line. But Fox getting a max contract, that really surprised me. I did a whole video on this on my second channel, And1 Hoops, so I won't go into it in great detail here, but based on what we saw from Fox last season, especially after he was traded to the Spurs, before he got sidelined for the rest of the season, like forget about the injury concerns for a minute, even when he was playing, Fox does not scream max player to me. I know the league throws around max contracts, even sometimes for players who aren't worth that kind of money based on their production, but giving a player like Fox, after the kind of season he had and the injury that he's coming off of, 30% of the cap and over $55 million annually, all the way to $63 million annually by the final year of that deal. And not to mention the fact that the Spurs now added Dylan Harper, they have Stephon Castle winning Rookie of the Year. Again, I'm sure the Spurs will figure it out, but that's an overpay if I ever saw one. And you know what? If I'm Josh Giddey, if I'm his agent, I'm not looking at this as an overpay. I'm looking at it as another example to demonstrate the going rate for a starting point guard in the NBA. In the case with Fox, yeah, he's a better player, but is he 2 times the player Josh Giddey is? Because he's going to be making more than double than that of what the Bulls are wanting to offer Giddey. In fact, nearly triple if you consider the fact that Fox is going to be making over $60 million by the 4th year of that deal. Look, I want the Bulls to get a good deal for Josh Giddey. Like, as a fan, I'm more focused on how this benefits the team rather than necessarily the player. But as I've said so many times, even during this past season, you also have to factor in the human element of this, the relationship side of basketball that is so critical in this league. You might have all the leverage in the world, but giving your player a lowball offer, that sticks with them. and is going to have an impact on their play if they feel they are being paid below their value. And now Giddey is seeing some of the other guys get these massive contracts around the league, these massive contract extensions, players who aren't even all-stars in the NBA, players who are older than him and don't have the kind of upside he does. He's going to feel disrespected and a bit of animosity towards this team who claim to view him as a foundational piece. So my hope is the Bulls, especially after some of these extensions, find some middle ground. Both sides can make some concessions on their end for a new deal, a deal that is fair, but also doesn't put the Bulls in a position where they're hamstrung on their cap sheet for the future. As we've said before, the longer this drags out, the messier it's going to get. Now, quick side note, it was reported by Brett Siegel of Clutch Points that he expects the Bulls and Giddey will come to a resolution on a 3-year deal. I like Siegel. He's pretty credible when it comes to his insider connections and information, but he has been wrong in the past, and so I always take reports like this with a grain of salt until it is announced by Shams Charania. But if it is true and the Bulls and Giddey reach a agreement on a 3-year deal, I mean, depending on the amount, I'd be fine with that. And it would be a scenario where it would actually work out for both sides. Gives the Bulls some added flexibility to pivot and get Giddey off of their books earlier if it doesn't work out. And then for Giddey, maybe he doesn't get the annual amount that he's looking for on a 3-year contract, but it's 3 years guaranteed money, and it allows him to enter unrestricted free agency earlier to secure an even bigger contract than signing a 5-year deal on a less than ideal annual amount. Anyway, I don't know about you guys, but every time I get a Shams notification, my heart always races a bit, thinking this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one on Josh Giddey. And then I'm always disappointed to see it's another random two-way player agreeing to another two-way deal with a new team. But you guys know I'll keep you posted and share my reactions to all of it whenever it does in fact happen that Giddey and the Bulls have agreed on a new contract. But in the meantime, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.